They told him brain cells don't come back, ever. That once they're gone for good. And then this neuroscientist watched scans light up in a way that should have been impossible. After his patient changed nothing except what was on his plate. No new drugs. No surgery. Just food. And that moment forced him to question everything he thought he knew about the human brain. If you like stories that sound fake until science backs them up, do me a favor right now. Hit subscribe. Tap the notification bell. Because this channel exists for moments exactly like this. The kind that quietly change how you look at your own body, your own habits, and maybe even your future. This story starts in a place most people never expect. Not a lab, not a hospital bed, but a kitchen table. A normal one, the kind with coffee stains and crumbs you swear you'll clean later. Because the truth is, brain decline doesn't usually announce itself with sirens. It creeps in. You forget a word. You lose your train of thought. You reread the same sentence 3 times and still don't know what it said. And everyone around you laughs it off. Stress. Age. No big deal. Except sometimes it is a big deal. And the stakes are higher than anyone wants to admit. The neuroscientist at the center of this story spent decades studying neurons under microscopes. He was trained to believe that once mature brain cells die, regeneration is basically non-existent. That's what the textbook said. That's what his mentors taught. That's what the data seemed to show. So when a middle-aged patient walked into his clinic complaining of brain fog, memory slips, a constant feeling of mental fatigue, the expectation was simple. Manage symptoms, slow decline, accept limits, but something didn't sit right. The scans showed inflammation. Not catastrophic, but persistent. The kind that quietly erodes function over time. The patient asked a simple question, one that doctors hear every day. Is there anything I can do? And instead of answering with the usual vague advice, this neuroscientist paused, because he had recently stumbled onto research most people ignored. Studies buried in journals. Animal data. Nutritional neuroscience. Stuff that didn't make headlines because it didn't involve a pill. So he made a suggestion that sounded almost insulting in its simplicity. Change what you eat. Not a diet. Not a cleanse. Just specific foods. The patient was skeptical. Everyone is. Because food sounds too ordinary to fix something as complex as the brain. But he tried it anyway. Weeks passed. Then months. When they repeated the imaging, the room went quiet. Areas that should have continued to dim were more active. Neural connections were stronger. Markers of inflammation were down. Here's the part that still makes neuroscientists uncomfortable. Certain regions showed signs consistent with repair, not just protection. Repair. That's when the real question hit. What if we've been feeding our brains the wrong things for decades? And worse, what if we've been starving them of exactly what they need to heal? The brain is greedy. It uses about 20% of your body's energy, even when you're doing nothing. It demands raw materials constantly. Fats, amino acids, micronutrients. And when it doesn't get them, it doesn't just slow down. It adapts. It cuts corners. It sacrifices long-term health for short-term survival. That's where brain fog lives. That's where memory issues start. That's where focus quietly dies. The neuroscientists began looking backward at populations with lower rates of neurodegenerative disease, at dietary patterns, at foods that had been demonized, then ignored, then forgotten. And one category kept coming up again and again. Fats. Not the processed garbage everyone thinks of. specific fats, the kind your brain is literally built from. Nearly 60% of the brain is fat. Let that sink in. Your thoughts, your memories, your personality, built on fat. And yet most people spend their lives terrified of eating it. This disconnect alone explains more cognitive decline than most people realize. Because when you don't give the brain quality fats, it still builds. It just uses whatever scraps it can find. The structure suffers. One food stood out early. A food people either love or avoid completely. Fatty fish. Not supplements, powders, actual fish. Rich in DHA, a form of omega-3 that embeds directly into neuronal membranes, making them more flexible, more responsive, more resilient. In animal studies, DHA deficiency led to impaired learning and memory. In humans, higher DHA intake correlated with thicker cortical regions associated with cognition. The patient added it in. A few times a week, nothing extreme, and something interesting happened. His mental stamina improved first, not memory. Stamina. He could think longer without feeling drained. That's not random. That's mitochondria. The energy factories inside brain cells responding to better fuel. But here's the part nobody talks about. Omega-3s don't just support neurons. They actively reduce neuroinflammation. Chronic inflammation is one of the silent killers of brain cells. Lower the inflammation, and suddenly the environment becomes safe for repair processes to activate. Processes the brain still has, but rarely uses under constant stress. Then came another food, one that sounds boring, leafy greens. But not for the reason you think. These plants are loaded with folate and magnesium, two nutrients critical for neurotransmitter synthesis and synaptic plasticity. Translation: communication between brain cells. Without them, signals misfire. With them, pathways strengthen. The neuroscientist noticed something else. People who consistently ate these foods didn't just perform better on cognitive tests. They reported feeling sharper, more present, less anxious. That matters, because stress hormones like cortisol are toxic to neurons when elevated long-term. Certain foods blunt that response, quiet the nervous system, give the brain space to recover. But the biggest surprise wasn't fish or greens. It was something most people associate with indulgence: berries. Deep colored, purple, almost black. These fruits are packed with polyphenols that cross the blood-brain barrier. That's rare. Most nutrients never make it past that gatekeeper. These do. Inside the brain, they act like cleanup crews, reducing oxidative stress, protecting DNA, supporting signaling pathways involved in learning. In some studies, older adults who consumed berries regularly showed improvements in memory comparable to reversing years of decline. Years, the patient added them into. And this is where the story takes a turn, because his memory didn't just stabilize, it improved. Names came easier. Focus returned. And the neuroscientist had to confront something uncomfortable. The brain is not as helpless as we've been told. It is plastic, adaptive, responsive. But only if we stop working against it. And here's the mini cliffhanger. Because just when it seemed like the story was about adding things in, the biggest breakthrough came from removing something almost everyone consumes daily without thinking. Something that quietly damages neurons while pretending to be harmless. And once that was gone, the brain's repair mechanisms didn't just wake up, they accelerated. That's where this gets wild. Because the next food, or rather the absence of it, changed everything.